At dinner, Alyssa lazily pointed at me and said, "This is my free taxi service." The table howled with laughter. I stayed silent, gripping my fork until my knuckles turned white. That night, I took back the car keys. Days later, she called from a bus stop, crying, stranded in the rain, begging for help. I let it ring out. That's when I decided, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. My name is Jake Morrison, and I've been running Morrison's Auto Repair for 15 years. It's not much. A cramped garage on the outskirts of Millfield, Michigan, where the American dream came to die sometime around 2008. Oil stains mark the concrete floor like battle scars, and unpaid bills stack up on my desk like autumn leaves. But it's mine, and in this Rust Belt town where half the storefronts are boarded up, that counts for something. Alyssa, my wife of 22 years, works at Brennan & Associates, the only law firm in town that still turns a profit. She's a junior partner now, finally clawing her way up after years of 60-hour weeks and brown-nosing the senior partners. At 41, she's got the sharp-edged ambition of someone who started late and refuses to slow down. "You smell like motor oil," she said that Tuesday morning, not looking up from her phone as I poured coffee. "Can't you shower before breakfast?" "Good morning to you too, sweetheart." I kept my voice level, but something cold was settling in my chest. "Sleep well?" She glanced up, annoyed. "I had to work late again." The Patterson case is killing me. Funny thing about lies. They have a smell. Not motor oil or coffee or the bacon I was frying. Something sour and desperate that hangs in the air like smoke. Alyssa had been working late a lot recently, coming home with her hair mussed and her lipstick gone, claiming exhaustion while her eyes sparkled with secrets. Our daughter Jenna bounced down the stairs, 19 and home from Michigan State for the weekend. She had Alyssa's sharp features and my stubborn streak, though lately she seemed to have inherited her mother's talent for casual cruelty. "Dad, you're not seriously wearing that shirt to my presentation tonight, are you?" She wrinkled her nose at my flannel. "It's got grease stains." "It's clean grease," I said. "The good kind." She rolled her eyes and grabbed a yogurt from the fridge. "Mom, tell him." Alyssa finally looked up from her phone. "Jake, maybe just this once you could make an effort. It's important to Jenna." Everything's important to Jenna. Last week it was important that I drive her to 3 different stores to find the right shade of nail polish. "That's different," Jenna snapped. "This is my academic presentation. There will be professors there. People who matter. People who matter." The words hit like a wrench to the gut, but I kept my expression neutral. In the Morrison family, I'd apparently become the person who didn't matter, the grease monkey who paid the bills but embarrassed them at social functions. That evening, I put on my one good shirt and drove them to the university. Jenna's presentation was on social media's impact on modern relationships. Ironic, considering she spent more time talking to strangers online than to her own family. The presentation went well. Jenna was smart, I'd give her that. She talked about authenticity and connection while checking her phone every few minutes, and the professors nodded like she'd discovered fire. Afterward, we went to Romano's, the fancy Italian place downtown where the breadsticks cost more than I charged for an oil change. That's where Alyssa made her joke about me being her free taxi service. Rick Brennan, the boss's nephew and rising star at the firm, had joined us for dinner along with his wife Sandra and Alyssa's best friend Carla. They were all laughing about something when Rick mentioned needing a ride to the airport. "Oh, just call Jake," Alyssa said, waving her wine glass in my direction. "This is my free taxi service, available 24/7, and he never complains about the destination." The laughter that followed felt like needles under my skin. Rick slapped the table. Sandra covered her mouth in mock horror, and Carla practically cackled. Even Jenna giggled, though she had the grace to look slightly guilty afterward. "Come on, honey," I said quietly. "That's not fair." "Oh, don't be so sensitive," Alyssa shot back. "It's just a joke. You know I appreciate everything you do. But her eyes said something different. Her eyes said I was exactly what she'd called me, a service to be used, not a partner to be respected. I drove home in silence while Alyssa texted furiously in the passenger seat and Jenna live-streamed on Instagram from the back. The 3 women in my life, and I might as well have been invisible. That night, I made my decision. I gathered every set of car keys in the house, Alyssa's BMW, Jenna's Honda, even the spare keys to the pickup truck, and locked them in my shop's safe. If I was just a taxi service, then this taxi was going out of business. The next morning, Alyssa discovered the missing keys right as she was leaving for work. "Jake! Where are my keys?" I was under the hood of a '98 Camry, but I could hear the panic in her voice. "Safe place," I called back. She stormed into the garage, still in her bathrobe and slippers. "This isn't funny. I have a deposition in an hour." "Call an Uber," I suggested. "Or maybe Rick can give you a ride." I'm sure he wouldn't mind. Something flickered across her face. Too quick to catch, but I felt it like a change in air pressure before a storm. "Don't be ridiculous. Just give me the keys." "Can't do it, sweetheart. The free taxi service is permanently out of order." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw her calculating. How far could she push? How much could she demand? In 22 years of marriage, I'd never said no to her. Not once. "Fine," she said finally. "But this is childish, Jake. Really childish." She called a cab and left without saying goodbye. That afternoon, Jenna texted me a string of angry emojis. Apparently, she'd missed some important social gathering because she couldn't borrow the car. I deleted the message without responding. But it was Thursday evening when the real test came. My phone rang at 8:47 p.m. and Alyssa's name flashed on the screen. I was watching the Tigers lose to the Yankees, drinking a beer and enjoying the first peaceful evening I'd had in months. I let it ring. She called back immediately. Then again. On the 4th call, I finally answered. "Jake?" Her voice was small and shaky. "Jake, I need you to pick me up." "Where are you?" "The bus stop on Highway 12, near the old Dairy Queen." That was strange. Highway 12 was in the opposite direction from her office, out near the cheap motels and truck stops. What would she be doing there? "How'd you get all the way out there?" A pause. I had a meeting. A client meeting. My ride fell through and I'm stranded. It's starting to rain, Jake. Please. Through the phone, I could hear the whistle of wind and the patter of raindrops. She sounded genuinely distressed, maybe even scared. The old Jake would have grabbed his keys and raced out into the storm to rescue her. But the old Jake was past. He'd died at Romano's, somewhere between the breadsticks and the free taxi joke. "Sorry," I said. "The taxi service is closed." "Jake, please. I'm begging you. Call Rick," I suggested. "I'm sure he'd be happy to help." I hung up and turned off my phone. Later that night, she came home in a cab, soaked to the skin and shivering. She didn't speak to me, just went straight upstairs and slammed the bedroom door. I slept on the couch and dreamed of empty highways stretching toward horizons I'd never see. The war had officially begun. The next morning brought the kind of silence that feels like a loaded gun. Alyssa moved through the kitchen like I didn't exist, making coffee and toast with the mechanical precision of someone who'd rehearsed being angry. She was dressed for battle in her sharpest suit, the charcoal gray one she wore to depositions when she wanted to intimidate opposing counsel. "We need to talk," she said without looking at me. "I'm listening." "Not here. Tonight. After dinner." She left without another word, and I spent the day wondering what ultimatum she was preparing. In 22 years, Alyssa had never met a problem she couldn't lawyer her way around. She'd be coming with arguments, precedents, maybe even a PowerPoint presentation on why I was being unreasonable. But I had my own investigation to conduct. It started with the gym bag. Alyssa had taken up fitness with the same intensity she brought to everything else, joining the expensive health club downtown and going 3 times a week without fail. She kept her gym clothes in a black Nike bag that lived in our bedroom closet. I'd never looked inside it before. Why would I? But something about her story from the night before, the mysterious client meeting on Highway 12, the convenient ride that fell through, didn't add up. In my experience, when something doesn't make mechanical sense, you start checking the parts that should work, but don't. The gym bag was full of the usual stuff. Workout clothes, protein bars, a water bottle that smelled like it hadn't been washed in weeks. But tucked into the side pocket, wrapped in a spare sports bra, was a phone I'd never seen before. A cheap flip phone, the kind drug dealers use in movies. My hands were shaking as I opened it and scrolled through the messages. What I found there changed everything. Can't wait to see you tonight. Same place? -R double quote, miss you already. Last night was incredible. A, your husband suspect anything? -R Jake's clueless. Too busy with his precious garage to notice what's happening under his nose. -A, quote. There were dozens of messages going back months, explicit photos, hotel receipts forwarded as pictures, plans for secret meetings, and the location mentioned over and over again, the Sunset Motel on Highway 12, the same highway where she'd been stranded in the rain. R was Rick Brennan, of course, the golden boy of Brennan and Associates, the one who'd laughed loudest at the free taxi joke. He'd been coming to our house for years, asking for advice about cars, borrowing tools, playing the role of family friend while he planned to steal my wife. I sat on the edge of our bed, holding the evidence of my marriage's destruction, and felt something cold and sharp crystallizing in my chest. Not heartbreak, that would come later. This was something harder and more useful. This was rage refined into purpose. The phone buzzed with a new message. Can't make it tonight. Husband being difficult about the car. Tomorrow, for sure. A. So that's what last night had been about. Not a client meeting, but a failed attempt to meet her lover. She'd probably taken a cab to the motel, only to find Rick couldn't make it, hence the stranded call for rescue. I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it and went to work. But I couldn't concentrate on carburetors and brake pads. My mind kept circling back to those messages, to the casual cruelty of Jake's clueless and the months of deception they represented. By closing time, I'd made my decision. If Alyssa wanted to play games, I'd show her what a real game looked like. That evening, I followed her. She left the house at 7:30, claiming she needed to work late on the Patterson case. I gave her a 10-minute head start, then climbed into my pickup truck and took the back roads toward downtown. But instead of turning toward the law office, I headed for Highway 12. The Sunset Motel was exactly what you'd expect from its name and location. A relic from the 1960s that catered to truckers, cheating spouses, and people who paid in cash. Pink neon flickered against the growing darkness, and half the parking spaces were filled with cars that had seen better decades. Rick's silver Lexus was parked outside room 237. I pulled into the Dairy Queen across the street and waited. At 8:15, Alyssa's cab pulled up to the motel. I watched my wife of 22 years hurry across the parking lot in the rain, her heels clicking on wet asphalt, and disappear into room 237. The logical thing would have been to leave. To drive home and start calling divorce lawyers. But logic had abandoned me somewhere around the third explicit text message. Instead, I drove across the street and parked next to the Lexus. Rick had always been proud of his car, a 2019 ES350 in silver that he washed every weekend and parked in the far corner of every lot to avoid door dings. He'd spent 20 minutes at last year's company picnic explaining the difference between the luxury and premium packages. I had my tire iron in my hand before I'd consciously decided to use it. 4 quick strikes, and all his tires were flat. Then I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the deflated Lexus, typing a quick note. Car trouble? Ask your mechanic. I slipped the note under the windshield wiper and walked back to my truck. As I drove away, I could see the security camera mounted above the motel office, its red light blinking in the darkness like a mechanical eye. Let it watch. I was past caring about consequences. At home, I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey and sat in my recliner, waiting for the phone to ring. It didn't take long. Jake? Alyssa's voice was tight with panic. Something happened to Rick's car. All 4 tires are flat, and there's no service stations open this late. Can you come help us? U.S. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Sorry, I said. I'm already in my pajamas. Maybe call AAA? Jake, please. We're stranded. Funny how that keeps happening to you lately. I hung up and turned off my phone, but sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those text messages. Jake's clueless. Last night was incredible. Your husband suspect anything? 22 years of marriage, and I'd become a punchline in my own life story. The next morning, Alyssa came home in a cab again, looking exhausted and defeated. Her hair was disheveled, and there were dark circles under her eyes. She didn't mention Rick or the car trouble, just went straight upstairs to shower. But an hour later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Silence, then a click. 5 minutes later, a text message arrived from the same unknown number. No words, just a photo. Me, standing next to Rick's Lexus in the motel parking lot, tire iron in my hand. Someone had been watching the watchers. I stared at the photo, my blood running cold. The angle suggested it had been taken from the motel office, probably by the desk clerk or maybe another guest. Whoever sent it knew exactly what I'd done and had the evidence to prove it. But why send it to me instead of the police? What did they want? The answer came in a second text. We need to talk. I looked around the garage, suddenly feeling exposed. The walls that had always felt like protection now seemed thin as paper. Someone out there knew my secrets, had turned my own surveillance against me. The game was getting more complicated, and I was no longer sure I was the one playing it. The anonymous photographer turned out to be Carla Hendricks, Alyssa's best friend and my least favorite person in Millfield. She showed up at my garage the next afternoon, driving her pristine white Escalade like she owned the town. Which, in a way, she did. Carla's husband owned 3 car dealerships and half the commercial real estate downtown. We need to talk, Jake. She climbed out of the SUV, wearing designer jeans and enough jewelry to fund my shop for a year. Privately. I wiped my hands on a shop rag and nodded toward my office. It wasn't much, a cramped room with a metal desk, 2 folding chairs, and a coffee maker that had been brewing the same pot since Tuesday. But it was private. Carla perched on the edge of one chair like she was afraid of catching something. I saw what you did to Rick's car. Did you now? She pulled out her phone and showed me the photo she'd sent, me with the tire iron, caught in the act like a common vandal. The question is, what are we going to do about it? We? You and me, Jake. Partners in this mess. She leaned forward, and I caught a whiff of expensive perfume mixed with something else. Fear, maybe, or excitement. See, I know about the affair. Have for months. The question is whether we're going to let them destroy our families, or if we're going to fight back. This was unexpected. I'd assumed Carla was here to blackmail me or turn me into the police. Instead, she was offering an alliance. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we make them pay for what they've done. Not with lawyers or divorce courts. They'd both land on their feet. I'm talking about real consequences. Social consequences. Professional consequences. She had my attention now. Go on. Rick's up for senior partner at the firm. The decision gets made next month. If certain information came to light about his extracurricular activities, well, the senior partners are all family men, very traditional values. And Alyssa? Carla's smile was sharp as broken glass. Alyssa's been stealing from the firm. Nothing dramatic, just padding her expense reports, billing personal meals to client accounts. Probably adds up to 5,000 or 6,000 over the past year. My blood went cold. How do you know that? Because I do the books for 3 of their biggest clients. I see every invoice, every receipt. Your wife isn't as clever as she thinks she is. I stared at her, trying to process this information. Alyssa was cheating on me with Rick and apparently embezzling from her own firm to pay for their dates. The woman I'd married was a stranger. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Nothing yet. Just keep doing what you're doing. Make their lives difficult. Force them to make mistakes." She stood up, smoothing down her jeans. "And when the time comes, be ready to move fast." After she left, I sat in my office trying to understand what had just happened. Carla had always struck me as shallow and materialistic, but there was something calculating in her eyes that I'd never noticed before. She wasn't just offering help. She was orchestrating something. But what? And why? I didn't have long to wonder. That evening, Jenna came home from college with news that hit like a sucker punch to the gut. "Dad, we need to talk about money." She was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open, spreadsheets glowing on the screen. "My tuition payment bounced." "What do you mean, bounced?" "The bank rejected it. Insufficient funds." She turned the laptop toward me, showing a red-highlighted email from the university bursar's office. "They're saying if we don't make the payment by Friday, I'll be dropped from my classes." I felt the floor shift under my feet. The tuition money was supposed to come from our joint savings account, the one Alyssa managed because she was better with finances. We'd been putting money aside for Jenna's education since she was born. "Where's your mother?" "Working late again?" Jenna's voice was tight with worry. "Dad, what's going on?" "Is the shop in trouble?" I couldn't tell her the truth, that her mother had apparently been raiding our daughter's college fund to pay for hotel rooms and romantic dinners with her lover. Instead, I promised to sort it out and sent her upstairs to study. Then I called the bank. The news was worse than I'd feared. Our savings account, which should have had nearly $40,000, was down to less than $300. The withdrawals had been happening for months, small amounts at first, then larger ones, all authorized by Alyssa's signature. I hung up the phone and sat in the dark kitchen, feeling something break inside me. It wasn't just the betrayal anymore. It was the scope of it. Alyssa hadn't just cheated on our marriage. She'd stolen our daughter's future to fund her affair. That's when I decided to stop playing defense. The next morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day conducting reconnaissance. I followed Alyssa to her office, then to a lunch meeting with Rick at the expensive steakhouse downtown. They held hands across the table and fed each other dessert while I watched from my truck across the street. After lunch, Rick went back to his apartment, a trendy loft in the renovated Mill District that probably cost more per month than I made in 3. I waited until he left for his afternoon appointments, then paid a visit to his building's parking garage. Rick's Lexus had 4 new tires, but it was still the same car. And I was still the same mechanic who knew exactly how to make a vehicle's life miserable without causing permanent damage. I loosened the bolts on his front wheels, not enough to make them fall off, but enough to cause a violent wobble at highway speeds. I disconnected a few spark plug wires, ensuring rough idling and poor performance. And I may have accidentally dropped some metal shavings into his oil filler cap. Nothing dangerous, nothing that would hurt anyone. Just expensive, embarrassing problems that would require frequent trips to a mechanic. But I wasn't done. That afternoon, I visited 3 print shops around town and ordered 500 flyers with Rick's photo and the headline, "Looking for love in all the wrong places?" Below his picture, I'd added his phone number and a message. "Married women. Preferred. Discretion guaranteed. Your husband will never know." The flyers went up everywhere. Grocery store bulletin boards, coffee shop windows, the community center, even a few lamp posts in his neighborhood. By evening, Rick's phone was probably ringing off the hook with calls from confused strangers and angry spouses. I was admiring my handiwork outside the Starbucks on Main Street when my own phone buzzed. Text message from Jenna. Dad, you need to see this. The attached link led to a TikTok video that made my blood freeze. Jenna was in her dorm room, speaking directly to the camera with the kind of casual cruelty that only 19-year-olds could master. So my dad is literally having a midlife crisis, she was saying, rolling her eyes dramatically. Like he took away Mom's car keys because she made a joke at dinner. A joke. Now he's acting like some kind of controlling psycho, and honestly, it's embarrassing. The video had been posted 6 hours ago. It already had 12,000 views and hundreds of comments, most of them mocking me as a boomer and a toxic husband. Someone had even identified me by name and tagged Morrison's auto repair. I scrolled through the comments, each one a knife twist in my gut. Imagine being so insecure you punish your wife for making a joke. This is why I'm never getting married. Someone should check on that woman. This sounds like abuse. Morrison's Auto Repair in Millfield, Michigan. Everyone should know what kind of man runs that place. My phone was already ringing with calls from strangers who'd seen the video. The first few were just curiosity seekers, but then came the angry ones. People calling me names I won't repeat, threatening to boycott my business, telling me I was everything wrong with men my age. I turned off my phone and drove home in a daze. My daughter, my own daughter, had turned me into a viral villain. The child I'd worked 60-hour weeks to support, whose college education I'd sacrificed for, had just destroyed my reputation for internet fame. When I got home, Alyssa was waiting in the living room with her laptop open. The TikTok video was playing on repeat. Well, she said, not looking up from the screen, I guess the whole world knows what kind of man I married. And what kind is that? She finally met my eyes, and what I saw there was worse than anger or disappointment. It was disgust. Pure, undiluted disgust. The kind who punishes his family when he doesn't get his way. The kind who makes his daughter so miserable she has to vent to strangers online. She closed the laptop with a sharp click. The kind I should have left years ago. Maybe you should have, I said quietly. Would have saved us both some time. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her recalculating. This wasn't the Jake she'd married, the one who absorbed her cruelty with patient silence. This was someone new, someone unpredictable, someone dangerous. I want you out of the house, she said finally. It's my house, too. Then I'll leave. I'll take Jenna and go stay with Carla until you come to your senses. Jenna's an adult. She can make her own choices. She already has. She chose to tell the world what you really are. After Alyssa left, I sat alone in my house and listened to the silence. Outside, I could hear cars driving past, probably people coming to see the viral villain's house, maybe hoping to catch a glimpse of the controlling psycho from TikTok. My phone buzzed with another unknown number, another text message. But this one wasn't a photo. It was just 4 words that made my blood run cold. This is just beginning. Someone out there was orchestrating my destruction, and they were just getting started. The war I'd thought I was fighting was actually someone else's game, and I was nothing but a pawn being moved across the board. But pawns, I remembered from my army days, could sometimes become queens if they made it far enough across the battlefield. Time to find out how far I could go. The anonymous messages continued for 3 days. Never threats, never demands, just reminders that someone was watching. A photo of me leaving the bank, another of me at the grocery store, one particularly unsettling image of me in my own garage, taken through the window when I thought I was alone. Whoever was playing Puppet Master wanted me to know they could reach me anywhere. On Thursday morning, the game changed. I was replacing the transmission on a 2003 Honda when Marv Patterson walked into my shop. Marv had been my squad leader in Afghanistan, and we'd kept in touch after discharge. He worked nights at Murphy's Bar now, serving drinks to the same kind of broken-down veterans and factory workers we'd once been ourselves. "Heard you were having some domestic troubles," he said, settling his bulk against my workbench. Marv was 6'4" and built like a refrigerator, with arms covered in tattoos that told the story of our deployment. News travels fast in this town. Faster when your daughter puts it on the internet. He pulled out his phone and showed me Jenna's TikTok. The view count had climbed to over 50,000. Want to talk about it? So I told him everything. The affair, the stolen money, the anonymous photographer, even Carla's strange offer of alliance. Marv listened without judgment, the way he'd listened to confessions in foxholes when we thought we might not see another sunrise. "Sounds like you're fighting the wrong war," he said when I finished. "What do you mean?" "You're going after the foot soldiers when you should be targeting the general." He gestured at my phone, where Jenna's video was still playing. "This whole thing feels coordinated. Your wife's affair, your daughter's viral video, these anonymous messages. Someone's pulling strings. Carla? Maybe. Or maybe someone else entirely." Marv stood up, brushing metal shavings off his jacket. "Either way, you need to stop reacting and start acting. Force them to show their hand." "How?" "Give them what they want, or make them think you are." His smile was sharp as a combat knife. "I've got some ideas if you're interested." That evening, I put Marv's plan into motion. It started with a phone call to Alyssa. "I want to talk," I said when she answered. "All of us. You, me, Jenna, Rick, even Carla. Tomorrow night." "Jake, I don't think—" "The old drive-in theater on Route 9, 8 o'clock. Come alone or don't come at all, but this ends tomorrow night." I hung up before she could respond. The Starlight Drive-In had been closed for 15 years, its giant screen cracked and faded, weeds growing through the speaker posts. But it had been our place once, mine and Alyssa's. We'd gone there on our first date, watching some forgettable action movie while sharing popcorn and awkward conversation. Later, when we were engaged, we'd park in the back row and fog up the windows like teenagers. Now it would be the place where everything ended. I spent Friday preparing. Marv helped me set up battery-powered lights around the old concession stand, and we positioned his truck at the entrance to block any quick exits. I brought my laptop and a portable speaker system, along with a folder full of printed evidence I'd been collecting. By 7:30, I was ready. Alyssa arrived first, driving Rick's Lexus. She'd dressed carefully, not too formal, not too casual, like she was going to a business meeting where someone might die. Rick was in the passenger seat, looking nervous and checking his phone constantly. Jenna came next, in an Uber that dropped her off at the gate. She was live streaming, of course, probably telling her followers about her crazy father's latest stunt. The phone was practically glued to her hand. Carla was last, arriving in her white Escalade with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what was going to happen. She parked next to Alyssa and climbed out, wearing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This is dramatic even for you," she called out as they approached the concession stand. "What's with all the lights?" "Wanted to make sure everyone could see clearly," I replied. "No more shadows. No more secrets." They gathered in a semicircle in front of me, like students waiting for a lecture. The old movie screen loomed behind us, blank and expectant. "So," Alyssa said, crossing her arms. "What's this about, Jake?" "It's about truth." I opened my laptop and connected it to the speaker system. About lies and betrayal and the games people play when they think no one's watching. I clicked play on the first video file, security footage from the Sunset Motel showing Alyssa entering room 237, then photos of Rick's car in the same parking lot. Bank records showing the drained college fund, screenshots of the burner phone messages. "Jesus, Jake," Rick said, his face pale in the artificial light. "Where did you get all this?" "I'm a mechanic," I said. "I fix things that are broken. But first, I have to figure out what's really wrong." Jenna had stopped live streaming and was staring at the laptop screen. "Mom? Is this real?" Alyssa's composure finally cracked. "Jenna, I can explain." "Can you? Can you explain why you stole your daughter's college money to pay for hotel rooms with your boyfriend?" "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" I advanced on her, 22 years of suppressed anger finally finding its voice. "What was it like when you called me clueless in your text messages? What was it like when you let our daughter mock me on social media while you were screwing around behind my back?" Rick stepped forward, trying to play peacemaker. "Look, Jake, I know you're upset." I grabbed him by the shirt and slammed him against the concession stand wall. He was bigger than me, but I had rage and military training on my side. "Shut up. You don't get to talk. You don't get to explain or apologize or make excuses. You're a parasite who fed on my family, and now you're going to pay for it." "Jake, let him go." Alyssa was pulling at my arm, but I shook her off. "Tell them, Carla," I said, not taking my eyes off Rick. "Tell them about the embezzlement, about the padded expense reports and the stolen client funds." Carla went very still. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. You told me yourself. $5,000 or $6,000 over the past year?" I released Rick and turned to face her, unless that was a lie too. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Then Carla started laughing, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, Jake. Sweet, stupid Jake. You still don't get it, do you?" "Get what?" "This." She gestured at the assembled group, at the lights and the laptop and the dramatic confrontation. "All of this. You think you're the one running this show, but you're just dancing to my tune." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. "You set this up. Every bit of it. The affair, the viral video, even those anonymous messages." Her smile was triumphant and terrible. "I've been planning this for 2 years, ever since you fired me from the shop." I remembered now. Carla had worked for me briefly, right after her husband's first dealership went bankrupt. She'd been a disaster, constantly on her phone, rude to customers, more interested in her manicure than actual work. I'd let her go after 3 weeks. "You orchestrated your best friend's affair for revenge?" Alyssa was easy. She was already unhappy, already looking for excitement. All I had to do was introduce her to Rick and let nature take its course. Carla's eyes glittered in the artificial light. "Rick was even easier. Tell a man he's irresistible, and he'll believe anything. And Jenna, your daughter's been angry at you for years, Jake. All those times you missed her school events because of work. All those promises you broke because a customer needed their car fixed. She was ready to lash out. I just gave her the platform." Alyssa was staring at her best friend like she'd never seen her before. "Carla, what are you saying?" "I'm saying you're all idiots. Jake for trusting you for trusting me, Jenna for being so desperate for attention she'd destroy her own father online." Carla pulled out her phone and started recording. "But don't worry. This is the grand finale. Jake's complete breakdown, caught on camera for the whole world to see." That's when I started laughing. "What's so funny?" Carla demanded. "You are. You think you're so clever, but you made one crucial mistake." "What mistake?" I nodded toward the old movie screen behind us. Marv stepped out from behind the projection booth, holding a video camera. The screen flickered to life, showing a live feed of our conversation. "You assumed I came here to break down," I said, "but I came here to expose the truth. Every word you just said, your confession, your manipulation, your plan for revenge, it's all being broadcast live on social media." Carla spun around, finally seeing the camera and the screen. Her face went white. "Smile, Carla. You're about to be more famous than my daughter." The view counter in the corner of the screen was climbing rapidly. 1,000 viewers, then 5,000, then 10. The comments were pouring in faster than I could read them, but the tone was clear: shock, outrage, and a growing call for justice. "Turn it off," Carla whispered. "Can't do that. This is live television. No editing, no do-overs, no spin. I looked at each of them in turn. My cheating wife, her manipulative lover, my social media-obsessed daughter, and the puppet master who'd orchestrated it all. The whole world is watching now. They've seen what you really are. Rick was already backing toward his car, but Marv stepped into his path. At 6'4" and 250 pounds, Marv was an effective deterrent. "Nobody leaves until this is finished," I announced. "We're going to have the conversation we should have had months ago. On camera, for everyone to see." Jenna was crying now, finally understanding the scope of what had been done to our family. Alyssa looked like she was in shock. Rick kept checking his phone, probably watching his reputation disintegrate in real time. But Carla was staring at me with pure hatred. "You bastard," she hissed. "You think this changes anything? You think exposing me makes you the hero?" "No," I said quietly. "I think it makes us even." The screen behind us showed 20,000 viewers now, then 30,000. The story was spreading across the internet like wildfire. The mechanic who'd turned the tables on his tormentors, the puppet master exposed, the family destroyed by manipulation and greed. But I wasn't done yet. The final act was still to come. The live stream reached 50,000 viewers before the police arrived. 3 squad cars with flashing lights responding to reports of a domestic disturbance at the old drive-in. But by then, the damage was done. The truth was out there, spreading across social media like a virus, impossible to contain or control. Officer Martinez, who'd bought coffee from me for years when his patrol car needed work, approached cautiously. "Jake, we got some calls about a situation out here." "No situation, Martinez. Just a family meeting." I gestured toward the screen where the view count had climbed past 60,000. A very public family meeting. He looked at the assembled group, Alyssa still in shock, Rick pale and sweating, Jenna crying into her phone, and Carla standing frozen like a deer in headlights. "Maybe we should take this somewhere private." "Privacy's what got us into this mess," I replied. "Everything's out in the open now." But Carla had finally found her voice again. "Officer, this man is harassing us. He lured us here under false pretenses and is now broadcasting private conversations without consent." Martinez looked uncertain. "Is that true, Jake?" "Every person here came voluntarily, and everything we've discussed tonight was already public knowledge, just scattered across different platforms. I just put it all in one place. The live stream comments were a mixture of support and outrage. Number sign. Justice for Jake was trending, but so was number sign toxic masculinity. The internet, as usual, couldn't decide if I was a hero or a villain, but I knew what I was. I was a man who'd been pushed too far and had finally pushed back. "Look," Martinez said, "why don't we all just call it a night? Everyone go home, cool off, maybe work this out through lawyers like civilized people." "Can't do that," I said. "We're not finished yet." I walked to my laptop and opened a new file, one I'd been saving for last. The screen behind us filled with financial documents, bank records, and email correspondence. "This is where it gets really interesting," I announced to both my captive audience and the growing online crowd. See, Carla's revenge plan had a fatal flaw. She got so focused on destroying me that she forgot to cover her own tracks. Carla went very still. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the Henderson account, the Morrison construction project, the Riverside development deal." I clicked through the documents one by one. 3 major real estate transactions where you served as the financial intermediary. 3 deals where money went missing. The color drained from her face. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Because I've got bank records showing transfers from client accounts to your personal checking account. I've got emails where you authorized payments to shell companies that don't exist. I've got a paper trail that leads straight back to you." Rick was staring at Carla like he'd never seen her before. "Jesus Christ, Carla. How much?" "It doesn't matter. $230,000, I said. Give or take a few thousand for incidentals. The live stream exploded with comments. The viewer count hit 100,000 and kept climbing. Someone had already started a thread on Reddit breaking down the financial documents. Twitter was dissecting every revelation in real time. You orchestrated my wife's affair and destroyed my family to get revenge for a job you were terrible at, I continued. But the real reason you wanted me discredited was because you knew I'd eventually figure out your embezzlement scheme. You needed me to look like an unreliable narrator before I could expose what you'd done. Carla's composure finally cracked completely. You self-righteous, pathetic bastard. You think you're so much better than everyone else, but you're nothing. You're a grease monkey who fixes cars for a living while the rest of us actually matter. Maybe, I said, but I'm an honest grease monkey. Which is more than I can say for you. Officer Martinez was on his radio now, calling for backup and probably a detective. Financial crimes were above his pay grade. But the real judgment was happening online, where 100,000 strangers were watching a woman's life implode in real time. Alyssa finally found her voice. Carla, is this true? Did you really manipulate me into having an affair? Oh, grow up, Alyssa. You wanted to cheat on your boring husband. I just gave you permission and an opportunity. But you were my best friend. I was your useful idiot. Just like Rick was your useful idiot, and Jake was your useful idiot, and Jenna was your useful idiot. Carla's voice rose to a near shriek. Everyone in this pathetic town is someone's useful idiot. I was just smart enough to be the one using people, instead of being used. The live stream had reached its peak, over 150,000 viewers watching a master manipulator reveal the depth of her contempt for everyone she'd claimed to care about. The comments were brutal, dissecting every word, screenshotting every expression, turning Carla into the internet's newest villain. But I wasn't finished. There was one more revelation, one final twist that would complete the picture. Tell them about the DNA test, Carla. She went very still. What DNA test? The one you had done on Jenna. The one that proves she's not my daughter. The silence was absolute. Even the police officers stopped talking into their radios. Jenna looked up from her phone, tears streaming down her face. What? I pulled out an envelope I'd been carrying and handed it to her. I found the results in Carla's car when she came to visit me at the shop. 99.7% certainty that you're not biologically related to me. Alyssa's face went white. Jake, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why you let me raise another man's child for 19 years? Can you explain why you let me work 60-hour weeks to pay for her college while you knew she wasn't mine? I wasn't sure. I thought she might be. Whose is she? The question hung in the air like smoke. Alyssa looked at Rick, who was backing away, shaking his head. She looked at Carla, who was staring at the ground. She looked at Jenna, who was reading the DNA results with growing horror. Tell them, I said quietly. Tell them whose daughter she really is. David's, she whispered. David Chen from the prosecutor's office. We had a brief thing right before Jenna was born. But I thought she was yours, Jake. I really thought. You thought wrong. I looked at Jenna, who was staring at me like I was a stranger. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But I'm not sorry you found out. The live stream was chaos now. The comments were moving too fast to read. News outlets were picking up the story. Someone had already created a Wikipedia page for the Millfield drive-in incident. But the real drama was happening in front of me. My wife, my ex-wife, was sobbing. Her lover was trying to disappear into the shadows. My daughter, who wasn't my daughter, was having an identity crisis broadcast to the world. And the puppet master who'd orchestrated it all was watching her empire of manipulation crumble in real time. So here's what's going to happen, I announced to both my captive audience and the online crowd. Alyssa, you're going to move out of my house and file for divorce. You can keep whatever's left in the joint accounts. It's not much, but it's more than you deserve. Jake, Rick, You're going to resign from the law firm before they fire you. The senior partners are probably watching this right now, and I doubt they appreciate the publicity. Rick nodded miserably. Jenna, you're going to figure out who you really are without social media validation or daddy's money. Your real father can pay for college if he wants a relationship with you. She was crying too hard to respond. And Carla? I turned to face the woman who'd orchestrated my family's destruction. Carla's going to jail for embezzlement. The FBI takes financial crimes very seriously, especially when they're broadcast live to 150,000 witnesses. Detective Sarah Williams had arrived while I was making my pronouncements. She was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who'd built a reputation for untangling complex financial crimes. Mr. Morrison, I'm going to need copies of all those documents you've been showing. Already prepared, I said, handing her a flash drive. Bank records, email correspondence, transaction histories, everything you need to build a case. She looked at Carla, who was standing perfectly still like a statue. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me for questioning. I want a lawyer, Carla said quietly. That's your right. But I should mention that financial crimes committed in front of 150,000 witnesses are generally pretty easy to prosecute. As the police led Carla away, I turned back to the laptop and addressed the camera directly. So that's the story, I said. A mechanic, his cheating wife, her manipulative best friend, and the daughter who wasn't really his daughter. No heroes, no villains, just people making bad choices and living with the consequences. I paused, looking at the view count one last time. Over 200,000 people had watched my family implode in real time. The moral of the story? Don't trust anyone who calls you clueless. They're usually the ones with something to hide. I closed the laptop, cutting off the live stream. The old drive-in fell silent except for the sound of police radios and distant traffic on Route 9. Marv walked over and clapped me on the shoulder. Feel better? No, I said honestly, but I feel finished. And I was. The war was over. The puppet master was exposed. The truth was out there for everyone to see. I walked to my truck and drove home alone, leaving the wreckage of my old life behind me in the flickering light of the drive-in screen. 6 months later, Carla was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for embezzlement. Rick left town and opened a small practice in Montana where nobody knew about his internet infamy. Alyssa moved to Grand Rapids and took a job with a non-profit that helped abuse victims. Ironic, considering she'd spent 22 years abusing me emotionally. Jenna dropped out of college and moved in with her biological father. She still posts on social media, but she's learned to think before she speaks. The viral video that started everything has been viewed over 10 million times, but she's never mentioned me in a post since that night at the drive-in. As for me, I'm still fixing cars in Millfield, Michigan. Business is better than ever. Turns out being the star of a viral revenge story is good for marketing, even if you're not entirely sure you were the hero. I never remarried, never even dated, really. Some wounds heal, but some scars are meant to be permanent reminders of lessons learned. But every evening, when I close up the shop and drive past the old Starlight Drive-In, I smile. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting the truth out there and letting it do the work for you. The screen is still cracked and faded, covered in weeds and graffiti. But on clear nights, when the moon is bright and the wind is still, you can almost see the ghosts of old movies playing there, stories of love and betrayal, heroes and villains, and the complicated truth that most of us are a little bit of both.